a natural forest is a self-regulating mechanism. So what you're trying to do when you design human settlements is make them work like those natural ecosystems where they really almost function by themselves, essentially. Permaculture is, if you had to put it into 3 words, it's an ethical design science. So if we look at the 3 elements of that definition, ethical refers to permaculture ethics, which are very simple. There's just 3 ethics. They're very basic. So it's earth care, people care, and fair share. And fair share means return of surplus. So what you were mentioning, that different modern consumptive lifestyle, it's very much taking. And one of the permaculture ethics is to take, but also give back, so that what you're taking from can continue to give back to you. So this is the neighbor's land, and this is pretty much where we were at 3 years ago. Just a barren, completely degraded piece of land. You can see there's no topsoil, and it's cracking, just like a desert. So this is exactly the state of our land 3 years ago, and you can see the different effects that the different practices and systems of land management have on the soil and on the environment. So this is where it all began. This is where we started planting our food forest. And we started planting this space about 2.5 years ago. So everything you see here is 2.5 years old. There was nothing here. It was completely empty. And you can see that in 2.5 years, it's already starting to become established as a food forest system. That means it's self-regulating. So we really don't have to water this anymore. We maybe cut weeds once or twice a year. So it's very much self-regulating, even at such a young age. So what we can really start to see here is sustainable food production that also mitigates climate change while being a sustainable, self-regulating system just like nature is. This is a 3-year-old avocado. We'll have to wait about another 4 to 5 years before we get fruit. But he's already looking quite good, quite healthy, very happy in our food forest. We have papaya and mulberry, and you can see we already picked off all the ripe fruit. But there's one here that we can eat. Indian jujube. This is a fruit that's drought resistant and also helps prevent erosion. That's why we have it here, to prevent any erosion coming down the hill. Design is really the heart of permaculture, which is something that often gets missed out on. And design is basically a composition of parts. And when we design permaculture systems, we're really looking at where and how we can place things so that they can work in the best possible way with everything else. What we're trying to do here with permaculture design is we're trying to replicate or mimic natural systems. So if you look at a forest system, you will have between 7 to 9 different layers. And this 7 to 9, it's called an order of size, and you see it throughout nature. So for example, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? You'll see it all over nature, where it ranges, very often it's 7, but it can range from 7 to 9, and getting smaller as you go along. So with our forest, we have different layers that similarly have this order of size going from small to big. So we start with our rhizome layer. So that's the roots, the root crops, things like galangal and ginger, cassava. And then we have our ground cover layer, right? So I can show you here. We've planted things like pigeon pea, and this is a nitrogen fixing ground cover. So actually it fixes nitrogen which is one of the main components of chemical fertilizer, but it does this naturally without any bad side effects. And every time you step on this plant, the bacteria associated with the root nodules actually fix nitrogen in the ground and fertilize your land. So it's the ultimate fertility carpet, if you will. So then we go up from the ground cover layer and we start moving into the herbaceous layer. So things like basil, leafy greens, things like this. This is the herbaceous layer. And then we start moving into the shrub layer. So shrubs, things like guava, mulberry if you keep it cut, these kinds of things. So small trees. Then you move into your understory layer. So for us, things like longan or oranges. And then you have your canopy, mangoes, lychee, jackfruit, etc. And then you have your emergent layer, which for us are things like coconut palms or long-term legumes, things like satal with edible seeds. And then we have, in the tropics, we have 2 additional layers, which are the clumpers, so things like banana and bamboo, things that clump essentially. And we also have the vertical layer. That vertical layer are things like vines. So here we'd have passion fruit, for example. And this is one way that you can really stack the space on your property to maximize productivity, energy efficiency, fertility, all these great things. So this in permaculture design would be what we call our zone 5 or our conservation area. So this part we don't touch, we just let nature do its natural processes and we simply watch and learn and observe and try and learn from nature's model. But you can actually see, so this area nature has been letting wild trees grow, so we have wild trees coming up that weren't here a few years ago. But you can see it's actually a much slower process than when we implement permaculture techniques. So the other food forest that you saw, that was the same age as this, and there's a lot more diversity, a lot more trees, so it's actually a much quicker way to regenerate landscapes while it's providing food for people. It's Sailin. This is Sailin. He's our superhero. He's the man around here who can do everything. And yeah, he's the best worker we've got for sure. สวนแถวนี้ค่ะแตกต่างยังไงบ้างแตกต่างกับที่ปลูกต้นไม้เนาะที่รีปลูกต้นไม้แบบทำความร่มเย็นเนาะแต่ไม่ได้สนเรื่องเงินเนาะที่อื่นมันต้องการเงินก็เขาก็ทำเกษตรแบบได้ตังค์เนาะอันนี้มันแต่ได้อยู่แต่ว่าช้าหน่อยเนาะค่อยๆได้เนาะที่อื่นนี่ได้ทีเดียวแต่ว่ามันไม่ดีต่อแบบลิลี่บอกสุขภาพไม่ดีเนาะปลูกกระเทียมปลูกหอมเยอะอันนี้ปลูกต้นไม้นี่เย็นดีเนาะอากาศดีสมมุติว่าที่ไซลินมีสวนแล้วก็มีวิธีได้เงินทำอย่างนี้พี่ไซลินก็อยากจะทำอย่างนี้ไหมจะทำแบบนี้แต่ว่าจะเป็นส้มจะเป็นผลไม้แบบถุงไรมิจีนส้มจีนอย่างเงี้ยเนาะส้มเขียวหวานอย่างเงี้ยจะปลูกแบบเนี้ยเป็นแถวเนาะอยากปลูกแบบนี้จะได้ตังค์อยู่ตลอดเนาะมันเนาบ้างส้มโอบ้างได้ราคาดีOne of my long-term goals is to set up an NGO, and that NGO would provide microfinancing or microloan schemes for farmers who would wish to apply these permaculture practices on their own land. And because a food forest might take 3 to 5 years before it's economically viable and the farmers actually get a profit, there needs to be some kind of security, some kind of financial security for the farmer to take them through that time. So that's what this NGO would provide. This place would be the demonstration site where the farmers can come to get the ideas and be introduced to these practices and techniques. And then the microfinancing part would be where the farmer can actually get the means to do what we do without being a privileged Westerner. people power, you can nearly move mountains. You know, we can really change the face of our earth and recreate our entire landscapes just with people.
Tastes like sugary tea. Not turn the vinegar at all. No, it's just too much sugar.
If you have a mother that's that big, maybe take a week.
You need to
You can ferment it as long as you want to.
Great minds.
need a bigger container for it now.
Seldom differ.